Okay, so there we go. That's the last floor before reset, so I'm going to stop here. So, and on that note, not too good on that floor, but regardless, so this is 25 hours later, or 25 hours of Dungeoneering later. So I'm now going to stop here and we can jump into the experience I gained and we can discuss the Dungeoneering a little bit further. So, this has been 25 hours worth of Dungeoneering. It wasn't all in one sitting, fortunately. I did it over the course of 4 days. Now, or actually 3 days, I tell a lie. It's been 4 days since I started, but one of those days I did absolutely nothing. Easter only passed a few days ago, so I just didn't come on, unfortunately, didn't get anything done. But in terms of the experience, this is all 110% from Dungeoneering. I didn't do any of my dailies that would usually give experience, such as Jack of Trades, or the recent activity where there's butterflies fluttering around and you get experience. Yep, they're around. So I cry every time. I haven't been getting any of that, so I've wasted a fair bit of experience, but I didn't want to taint the gains. I wanted to keep it solely from this so I could talk about it and it was as accurate as I could make it, because as I'll discuss, Dungeoneering, there's a lot of variables in there. Two people who do the exact same thing will not get the same result, but this is mine. So just to elaborate on it a little, I was using ranged primarily. Now you can see there's a little bit of magic and there's that very small amount. I think I punched a boss at one point, that one which you have to mine off the armor. I got annoyed when my arrows weren't doing anything. I just used ranged. Now there's no reason for that. Technically, I believe using either magic or range is a little bit better, because there's a fair few skill rooms where you find that there's a gap between you and the enemy, and if you can just kill them quickly, that's a lot easier than having to do the obstacle and then kill the thing attacking you. And on top of that, some of the there is one boss, I do not remember his name for the life of me, but he can only be killed with ranged abilities. So for the sake of having to continually swap gear just to deal with these little individual bosses, it's just simpler to take range and use it for everything. I'm actually just looking to find, it is the Necro Lord. So as of 77 Dungeoneering, you will need to have some form of ranged setup, whether it's magic or ranged itself. Otherwise you can't kill him, period. Melee won't work at all. And also bosses like Stomp and such makes it a lot easier. Now, along with that, I did start on 87 Dungeoneering, so I did end up getting a total of 4 levels. So jumping back to the skills, you can see I gained 2.1 million. Now, to some that might seem a lot, some it might not seem very much at all. I'm an Ironman, I was obviously doing it all solo, so a lot of people could do the skill differently. Now, the way I did it is I would do 2 different types of floors. Either a small C1, meaning it's the smallest type of floor possible, and it's C1, which is the complexity, so it's very small and very easy. Now the reason you would do complexity 1 small floors is to get through it as soon as possible. Because it is a complexity 1, it actually gives 50% reduced experience. I'll go ahead and actually run in the area so I can form a party just to demonstrate this. So what I would do, from floor 1 through to floor 19, I would do complexity 1, so you can see it only involves combat, none of these skills, but you get penalized 50% of the overall experience just for doing that. So it is a case of, I would do these ones to get through the lower floors very quickly, as the lower floors would give less experience overall. And then in terms of the actual size, when I would start, I would go ahead and have small selected. Now if it's complexity 1, medium isn't an option, so that would be from floor 1 to floor 19. Now from floor 20 onward, I actually did do medium C6s. Again, Dungeoneering is very diverse, you can do it how you like. A lot of people would argue that it may be not worth doing C6 to floor 30, although this is my opinion and opinion alone. It's not something I'm getting off the internet, but just how I feel. If you're an Ironman doing it solo, I think it's worth starting at 20. I don't think it's worth starting at 30 because you don't get as much experience from 30 plus because you're not doing larges with a group like normal people are when Dungeoneering. Now jumping in, the main point of this video for me was really tracking the experience I did actually gain overall whilst doing the 25 hours of Dungeoneering, because one thing I've always found very interesting about the skill is when you commit to Dungeoneering and you do the skill for some time, you never gain just experience in Dungeoneering. Now this is comparable to Slayer in that if you go level up Slayer, hypothetically say you go get 1 million experience in Slayer, you aren't just going to get 1 million experience in Slayer. You would find that depending on what gear setup you're using, you would get experience through combat skills. and also hit points, and possibly other things like prayer and those sort of things, depending on what other items you used, like Bone Crusher. But regardless, you would definitely be getting experience in more than just Slayer. Now, Dungeoneering is very similar to this in that you don't just get experience in Dungeoneering. Because you're an Ironman and doing the floor solo, you do actually have to open all the doors that you do come across, and therefore you do end up getting a lot of experience and a lot of skills. And there are multiple different rooms if you're doing complexity 6, which involve you completing activities that give experience in a variety of things. So over time that actually adds up. On the surface it's only usually a few hundred experience each thing, and it doesn't seem like much, but as you do it, it does start to add up. So I'm actually going to go ahead and expand it just for the sake of it makes it a bit easier to see. As you can see, Slayer, you don't get Slayer experience at all. There is not a single skill you come across. There are monsters you can kill in Dungeoneering that require a Slayer level, but even killing them doesn't give Slayer experience, which is strange to me. But I suppose they were concerned about maybe it being abused, or they just didn't want to, but regardless, you don't get any. Same with Invention, and with Hunter, you only get experience by fletching wood into traps. Making those gives Hunter experience for whatever reason, and usually only 1 or 2 at a time, so that's why Hunter's at a very small point. And going up the list, some of the skills that aren't used as much, most of these are just solely from opening doors. The farming, there's a farm specific room, and then going up the list. Now some things get used more than others in general, especially if you are an Ironman doing this solo. Mainly you might notice fishing, it's very high. Now fishing, it's not just doing skill rooms, there are fishing plots around Dungeoneering. Now I wasn't going out of my way to do all of these. I did want to keep it reasonable to what you'd expect if you were going to do Dungeoneering as an Ironman solo, but at the same time I was focused on not dying. I wasn't suiciding at all. If I was running out of food and getting low on health, I would stop and fish food. So I've just gone ahead and crunched the numbers with just the experience gain with these skills. So in terms of combat experience, I did gain 760k. So with the skills such as fishing and so on, I gained 440k. And in terms of the floors, I completed 93 complexity 1 smalls and 103 complexity 6 mediums. So I was leaning towards a few more mediums, but it was a case of I didn't start off with a complete reset when I did start doing it. When I did start, I did have some of the floors already completed, so that's why it's not, I guess, perfect in terms of numbers, but regardless, that is what I did manage to achieve in 25 hours. Now, this also does highlight one tip, I suppose, for Ironman. Dungeoneering is a great way to start your account. Now, these experience amounts don't seem great, but if you're level 1 in everything, they do go a long way in leveling your account past some of the lower levels, which can be quite grindy, especially for an Ironman when some low level resources can't be accessed apart from grinding them out yourself. So this is a very easy way to get past the very low level brackets and up to level 20 or 30 only by putting a few hours in. Okay, so just summing up, I guess, the gains over the 25 hours, I was getting 87k Dungeoneering experience per hour and getting 135k total experience per hour. So that was adding the Dungeoneering, the combat and the skilling experience. Now I did get an overall of 440k skilling experience and 760k combat experience. So it did all add up, which is one of the things I always find interesting about Dungeoneering, how it all just seems to come together. And with that, I did, over the 25 hours, I completed 93 complexity 1 smalls and 103 complexity 6 mediums. So quite a lot of Dungeoneering, although like any sort of grinding, your efficiency does go a little bit down when you do something in such large quantity. So keep that in mind. And also, obviously, the Dungeoneering experience per hour is very heavily dependent on what your current Dungeoneering level it is, as it all is based off of the floor you're doing and the prestige, which is the best floor you've ever done. So keep that in mind. Obviously, if you're not in my level bracket, if you're just starting off, you won't get this, unfortunately. But other than that, I thought that was interesting. Okay guys, so that's everything for this quick Dungeoneering video. So I guess if you've got any input on how you do Dungeoneering as an Ironman, doing it solo, by all means post it in the comments, give other people feedback. I'm sure there is a more effective strategy of doing it. Other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.